Hello, welcome to a Pilates video in which we're going to warm up the body and prepare it for a Pilates sequence. We'll mobilise the spine and engage the core strength and move just a little bit. My name is Caroline and this video comes to you from Movement Style. Let's get started. If you think that you'd like to use hand weights for mobilising the upper body and engaging and releasing the muscles in the upper back, then you can always take up some small hand weights. I'd recommend really light weights because the muscles that we're using are the underpinning muscles that we don't use so much actively, and so a smaller weight will usually be quite enough. So let's think about, I've got half kilograms, 1 pound weights. So let's think about the feet coming in underneath the hip joints, and we're going to lengthen through the feet, heel to ball of foot, and we'll let the toe joints lengthen, base of the big toe joint coming down, getting the weight as even as we can between the front and the back of the feet. So let's draw up through the kneecaps, fronts of the thighs, backs of the legs, gluteal muscles, and then we let the knees soften a little bit with legs still strong and directing the base of the tailbone towards the space between the heels. You can imagine a mini spotlight on our tailbone shining to between the heels. And then the crown of the head lengthening right up opposite direction, elongating your spine as much as you can between the tailbone and the crown of the head, just releasing each vertebra. So back of hips, back of shoulders, back of head level. And to secure that position, we're going to think about a broad and wide scoop and hollow in the lower abdomen. So really, as you do that, isolating to the muscles of the abdominal wall, broad and wide scoop and hollow, where we really hollow back close to the crests of the hip bones. And it's like a little smile in the lower abdomen. And as well, we can imagine a really tight belt fastening around our waist. If we imagine it's an elasticated belt, it squeezes us in across at the back of the waist and at the sides across at the front. But although the belt's very tight, we're going to pull our waist away from it at the back, then at the side, then at the front. So we really get this cylinder of strength wrapping around the spine in the midsection. So base of the ribcage tapers in towards the spine, breastbone lengthens away from the face, and above the spine and behind the breastbone, the spine lengthens up towards the crown of the head. So let's from here just breathe in to shrug the shoulders up and breathe out to shrug the shoulders down. And as we do that, shrugging the shoulders down, we're letting this happen in a gliding action and the shoulder blades moving down the back as far as they can. Now the range of movement isn't great, but gradually as you draw downwards with your arms, you should begin to feel a little bit of a connection between the shoulder blade and the back of the upper arm, just about there where I was indicating. And from there, we're going to let the arms lift up to shoulder height. So we breathe in, breathe out, holding on to that connection, which should get stronger as the arms come up to shoulder height. And then again, we breathe in to release and to shrug, and breathe out, find that connection, hold on to it, arms come up, and they're staying parallel. So we do that once more, and as the arms come up this time, we're going to think about releasing the muscles between the shoulder blades. So at the moment, the muscles between the shoulder blades are working, and the muscles over the back of the shoulder joint are working. We're going to let those muscles release, and then we re-engage them. We return the shoulder blades to that original position to either side of the spine, and working the muscles over the back of the shoulder joint into the upper arm. So it's our release and return, release and return. Now if we're holding weights, we avoid beginning to take the weight into the inside of the arm, but keep the arms really long. And then gradually on that return, an additional movement. So we release, breathe out to return, and then after that we bring the upper arms in line with the rib cage. So as the arms are doing all this movement, just double checking that your rib cage is still stabilized directly above your pelvis. And we're aiming to feel more or less a wall of strength through the back of the neck, back of the shoulders, back of the rib cage. We've got a great big kite-shaped muscle called the trapezius muscle. It's on both sides, and we're trying to feel that wall of the trapezius strength take up. Now into this we could add yet another movement. We could let the arms come forward but not releasing between the shoulder blades, and then widening the arms, opening across the collarbones, opening across the biceps muscles, Breathing in, the arms come parallel again. And we release. Breathing out, we connect and back to this wall of strength in the upper back. Breathing in, we come forward without the release. We engage from behind across the upper back, the shoulders, the back of the arms, stretch and lengthen. Breathing in and release. Breathing out, connect and draw back. So from behind, inhalation, arms come forward. Breathing out, we go wide. Breathing in, we come back to the center, release from behind, and then reconnect. So we breathe in, the arms extend, no release. Breathe out wide with all the power coming from the upper back rather than the arms. Breathing in, we're parallel and we release. Breathing out, we reconnect and the arms come in. So it's our inhalation, our exhalation, inhalation, release, and fully return. Inhalation, last time, wide, breathing out, breathing in, release, and return. So from here, we're going to continue to work with that wall of strength through the upper back, back of the neck, back of the shoulders. And we're aiming to feel the rotation coming from the muscles on the outside of the upper arm. So as the arms rotate, the action coming from the shoulder. And the temptation will be to move from the hands and to create a knock-on effect to the shoulder joint. But we're really trying to, again, feel that wall of strength, the triangular muscle across the back of the neck, shoulders, rib cage, the kite-shaped muscle rather. And then we're rotating the muscles, the back of the upper arm, turn out. And usually you know with Pilates that you're in the right muscle because the movement takes a moment or two to get going. It's slower than this one. And also, it doesn't have much power in the forearm or in the hand. The work all originates across the upper back and in the back of the shoulder. And we're working the underpinning muscles of our arm and hand movements rather than the ones that really articulate the movement to make it quite precise in the hands, the fingers, the forearms. So it's the muscles that support the weight of the arms and the upper back so that we feel strong and comfortable in what we're doing. So from behind, it looks like that. We could, with this one as well, from here, hold on to the connection over the back of the shoulder joint, extend out across the collarbones, opening the shoulder joints all the way through. And then we return with our upper back strength activated, breathing in. So it's that rotation from behind, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in to release. And another way that you know that the rotation is coming from the shoulders is that when you come here and you relax what you're doing, just relaxing in the back of the shoulders automatically brings the arms back to the parallel position. So let's do 2 more sets. So breathing out, that engagement, breathing in, we go wide, breathing out, we return, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, and releasing. So just roll through the shoulders there a little bit and relaxing. So if you've had enough of working with the weights, you can always put them down. If you're not working with weights, it's also fine. We're going to think a little bit about an arm back press. And once again, we come back into our aligned position. And this will involve a little bit of a Pilates plie back squat. So we call it a plie because we're going to aim to maintain our spine in neutral, really long, tall, but there's a squatting action through the legs. So I was saying the back of the leg is the hamstrings, but the official name for hamstring, biceps femoris. So it's like the biceps. When our elbow bends, our biceps contracts. When the knee bends, we can either just go with gravity sinking, not great for the knee joints in this type of movement, or we can deliberately work the biceps in the back of the thigh, the biceps of the thigh, biceps femoris. We can deliberately work that to come into the movement. Now I always like to think about the energy of the movement, initiating the actual movement, initiating in the hip joint and being carried by the muscles in the back of the thigh. So I get that quite distinctive look. The knees stay as much back as they can, And a little bit now the weight does pull into the heels. So let's just set up fully with our tailbone directing the mini spotlight to between the heels, the crown of the head moving up, the spine lengthening in between, back of hips, back of shoulders, back of head level, the smile, the belt fastening, squeezing away from the belt at the back, at the sides and the front, drawing up through the gluteal muscles, drawing up through the legs and the ribs, tapering in, breastbone and spine, moving towards one another. Weight even through the soles of the feet here, and then the energy initiating through the hip joint using that biceps femoris in the back of the thigh to come down. Lifting back up ribs, waist, the smile, the low glutes, the main glutes, pulling up front and back of thigh. So when I talk about the low glutes, these gushy bits, and the main glutes, this bit. So we breathe in, energy slices through the hip joint, back of the leg is working, ribs taper into the spine, lift themselves, waist lifts itself up out of the hips, the smile helps to lift the contents of the lower abdomen, glutes pull up, supporting your pelvis and the leg muscles. So each part of the body carries itself. And as we aim to hold on to the neutral spine, we need to really stay strong in this part as that little hinge action comes in. Now in one of these, 2 from now, we're going to hold down set our position. So coming down, comfortable position, not too low, back not too hinged forward, at least a 45-degree angle to the floor. And then we're going to breathe in, breathe out, shrug up, shrug down, feel the connection between the back of the upper arm and the shoulder blade. And being here, again, the movement comes by contracting in and around here. So we contract, release, contract, release. So the pulsing we see through the length of the arm, but the movement is not coming from the hands, but working that strength across the breadth of the upper back and into the back of the shoulder joint. So let's keep pulsing through 3 sets of 8. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We keep breathing, and then 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We keep breathing, hold the arms parallel, and 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just check the elbows are still long, not bending. And then from there we come up and a shake out through our shoulders and our arms. So after all of that, we should feel a little bit mobilized through our shoulders, and that we've, squeezed and released our upper back muscles. They should be feeling relatively fine. So let's come down onto the mat, and we might bring a little bit of a rolled up towel with us to help perhaps with padding up underneath the backs of the knees. So sometimes going to come into a hips to heels position. Sometimes people's ankles don't feel too comfortable, and if you put a rolled up towel or even a little blanket underneath the ankles, that can help. Equally, sometimes people's knees are not so happy here, and the flexion is reduced, so the front of the kneecap is not so much opened. There's less pressure on the front of the knee when we just support underneath the back of the knee with something as well. So just doing what you need to do to make this position comfortable, where we're lengthening through there. For me, it definitely feels better to just be in this position with my own legs and feet. And I try to, in this position, open the length through my spine. Now often that's inhibited when the arms go really far forwards and the front of people's chest is quite closed. It will inhibit the spine from really being able to lengthen. So if we let the arms be relaxed and we broaden out in the collarbones and have a sense of spaciousness in the shoulder joints, as if the space in the shoulder joints could open out to touch the wall on either side of the room where you are. And then just above the breastbone, letting the spine lengthen, and through the sides of the waist, letting the spine lengthen. And then from there, allowing the arms to edge forward in a way that actually allows you to maintain length and space through the spine. And then if they've come to that position, they're in the position where you probably feel a little bit of stretch around the front of the chest and sides of the arms, and that's a good place to let them lengthen. Now here we're going to think about stretching through the back of the shoulders, and let's work with the arm that's closest to the camera. I'm going to bring one arm in, thread it in underneath the front of my body, whilst I aim to hold my shoulders still nice and square to the mat beneath me. So I'm feeling quite a good stretch through the outside of the upper arm in the rear deltoids there that we were just working. And just keep breathing, remembering to keep breathing. And then as we're ready, let's release on that side, and we bring the other arm through, and the arm passes under. We're aiming to keep the shoulders square to the mat, so as the arm passes under, the shoulder on that side still stays in line with the hip on that side. So there's no real twist involved through the spine. And again, we remember to keep breathing, always useful. And then again, probably feeling that bit of an opening across the back of the shoulder on this side now. And then as we're ready, just going to release that. Now you can repeat that little stretch again, or if you feel like doing something slightly more advanced, we can bring ourselves forwards, we can shrug the shoulder blades down the back and really keep the shoulder blades moving in the direction of the sitting bones. We lift up with the smile already working, the belt fastening in as quickly as we can, and the muscles working around the base of the rib cage. So we avoid any sagging or sinking in the mid-back, but it's nice and supported. And here we're going to think about, again, taking an arm and passing it underneath the front of the body. So initially, as the arm passes under, holding the shoulders square to the mat in front of you, no twist. And then once you've taken that to the maximum position, using the muscles around your waist, and using the muscles around the ribcage, keep the shoulder blades as much as you can engaged in the energy moving down the back, and then we lower through the triceps coming down. Now, as we do that, there'll be a tendency for the waist on the working arm to shorten, to sag. But really we need to keep that waist nice and long. We keep using the core strength around the ribs and around the abdomen to keep the weight of this position lifting away from our head and neck and shoulders. Now, if it's just that the floor is too far away and then it's very tiring to hold the position, we can put something in underneath the shoulder so we don't have to go down so far. And ideally something where we catch the weight of the shoulder and the head, or if you're very skilled, you might feel it's more comfortable, you get the block or your support somewhere and the head is just releasing over the edge. So that either is fine as long as the neck wouldn't be dangling too much. So then as we're ready with our abdominal strength working, we come back and we send the hips back and towards the heels. And again, we might just let that release through the chest and the shoulders so the spine gets more length. And then as we're ready, off we go to the other side. So that's where, again, shoulder blades are active, core strength is active. We arrive to the all fours, nice and supported from our core muscles. Then it's the other arm that passes underneath and we avoid twisting to begin with. And then the waist strength flows in, we twist through, and our biceps might bring us down to the floor quite nicely. We might feel we've got space there. Alternatively, we might put a bit of support in, come down. You're still really lengthening back through the working arm, waist and hips. And again, you don't even have to go down as far as that. You can come through to something like this, but when the head is quite far away from the floor, you probably want to actually support the head on one like this. That's what I was meaning before about the neck not dangling. Won't want it to dangle through that whole height there. So we're breathing, we keep using the core strength to lengthen the ribs away from the shoulders and the neck so we're not overworking the neck. And then we put lots of strength into our supporting arm and we use our abdominal core muscles to untwist. And once again, we press back lots of space through our spines. So a breath or two here as the body just again absorbs that stretching and lengthening that we've been doing. And then let's think about bringing ourselves forwards along the mat. And as we come forwards along the mat, again, like when we were coming into the all fours a moment ago, we're going to think about coming forward with our core strength in place and the shoulder blades quite active in that moving as much down the back as possible position. Let's as well think about that strength that we were working in standing, the connection between the arms and the upper back that we had here. We're going to come into the Sphinx, and it will be the same position through the arms, but just with the palms facing downwards. So as we come through, let's crawl through, and we've got a nice deep lift in the lower abdomen and the navel pulling to the spine, the belt fastened into the back of the waist, and the shoulder blades pretty active. As you let the weight of the body connect with the floor, hold on to the core strength. Don't relax into the floor. Smile. The elasticated belt really, really too tight. Squeezing away from it at the back, at the sides and at the front. Breastbone hugs to the spine. Base of the ribcage still strong. So you may be able to see here that the tailbone's directed to between the heels, crest of the hip bone straight down, and the space between the ribs and the pelvis is working. The muscles in that space are working. And I could, if I wanted to, just about post a letter under there. And then again, it's that release and return arms, and the arms that we had with the upper arm alongside the rib cage. And then from here, with the cylinder of the core strength, really supporting the spine. The aim is to release the spine from the tailbone through the sacrum, through the spine and the waist, opening the sides of the waist, opening the sides of the ribs, and using that upper back strength, that upper back kite strength, wall of strength in the upper back to support us. So we can breathe in up here and breathe out to roll back down. And as the upper back lengthens forwards and upwards, we avoid any sense of countersinking into the waist, into the pelvis. So the ribs support themselves up and away from the waist, and the waist supports itself in the neutral position. We breathe in up here, breathe out to come down. Now, another error that people make with these movements is to lead with the chin and let the chin push out. And we need to really lead with the crown of the head. There's very little sense of being able to see where we're going. We're just looking forward and downwards into the mat. We hold on to that kite-like strength behind, and only at the top of the movement does the head flow up a little bit, but not far. We breathe in, breathe out to come down. Because the neck is very, very mobile, and it's a lot more mobile than the strength, the mobility in the back of the rib cage, people tend to move the head and neck, I think, quite quickly because it's easy to mobilize. But actually we're aiming to mobilize the spine around the rib cage here. And then let's just give it one last go. I'm using my back strength, my core strength. There's very little work going into my arms. In fact, I aim to feel no additional pressure go into the arms. Breathing in up here, and the exhalation to roll back down. So in theory, we felt that all through the upper body. We felt work in the midsection, but no arching or straining really. But all the same, we may find it helpful just to roll the hips and release the lower back at the end of that sequence. And then as we're ready, how about lots of deep abdominal strength? We connect the arms into the upper back, and once more we're going to press up. And this time, variation on a theme. We could let the knees move wide, we could reach the hips back and lengthen forwards in between. And in this position, if you have a Pilates ball, it's often where it's very helpful, you know, to support you, and again takes pressure off the neck, avoids your nose getting in the way, and again allows you to figure out where's a good place and a good position for your arms to be. So 2 or 3 breaths in this position, just allowing yourself to relax and to let go. Lots of length through the spine, opening up in the hips and the lower back. So then, as we're ready, let's walk the arms back towards us, and we can bring the legs together. And from here, we can think about rolling up and down through standing. So let's bring ourselves back up to standing to begin that practice. In standing, for the roll up, we need to once again align and engage the core strength. And sometimes if you have a Pilates ball, people can find that very useful and helpful, just to pop in between the knees, on the thighs, just above the knees and the inner thighs. But if you haven't got a Pilates ball, it doesn't matter, can still work, because of course we can still work without the Pilates ball. So I'll practice it without the Pilates ball first, and then a little bit explaining it with the Pilates ball and how it helps. So we'll bring the weight through heel to balls of feet, heel to balls of feet, even weight front to back. We can think about a little mini spotlight on the tailbone shining to between the heels. We can lengthen right up between the tailbone and the crown, lots of space through our spines, back of hips, back of shoulders, back of head level. Our pelvic diamond, the broad and wide scoop and hollow smile, lots and lots of engagement across the back of the waist, sides and front, and the ribs tapering in, breastbone and spine moving towards each other, broad in the shoulders, pelvis at the front and at the back. And then as we're ready, we let the head and neck roll forwards, spine rolling up and over behind the breastbone, waist staying as tall as possible, rolling through. Little by little, I always think it's a good idea to let the knees soften so that I can feel my lower spine really mobilize in this rolling forwards position. As my shoulders pass my hips, I think about lifting my pelvis up. I keep my broad and wide scoop and hollow going so that I'm able to mobilize my pelvis on the top of my thigh bones, and the top of the hips hinges forwards and the sitting bones lift up. And that brings me into neutral. Now I can either support that position with my arms on my thighs, or if I have bricks or blocks, that may be useful to use them here. Of course, if we're very limber, we're right through to the floor anyway. So hamstrings lengthening, and then once again, as you're ready, you let the knees bend a lot more. The tailbone directs the mini spotlight to between your heels again, and then the back of the waist strength really fastens in behind you, pulling up through your gluteal muscles nice and firmly, your smile working in front of the abdomen, upper back and shoulders working, your kite-shaped muscle coming back into play, and you've lengthened up, tall cylinder of strength to support the spine. So it's like this, that as we breathe out, we roll forwards through the upper back, knees can soften. We let the pelvis tilt on the thigh bones, lifting the sitting bones upwards. Waist can lengthen up and down, ribs and shoulders. Shoulder blades move up the back. Try to keep the chin tucking towards the top of the breastbone. You can use support, or it might be that you've arrived at the floor. We breathe in, and as you're ready with an exhalation, coming back up, directing the tailbone to between your heels, your smile coming in, the back of the waist strength coming in, gluteal muscles pull up as your waist restacks, and that triangle or kite-shaped strength coming in across your upper back. Thinking a lot about triangles this morning, seems. So how about as well, if you wanted to, with the Pilates ball, and if you've got the Pilates ball, you squeeze it, you squash it down, because they are quite squashable. You know, you don't inflate it fully, you just inflate it so that it's quite squashable. And then with the ball a little bit squashed between the inner thighs and tailbone diving down, as you flow forward, keep the effort of holding the ball very much in the thigh muscles, not up in the depth of your hip joints, because that will really inhibit what you're doing. But the effort to hold the ball in the inner thigh muscles, core muscles supporting you all the way through like we just did. Breathing in down here, finding our neutral spine, and then coming back up, the sitting bones move in the direction of your heels. Your tailbone moves down, you're still squeezing the ball with the inner thighs, letting your spine really lengthen up, the smile, the back of waist strength, glutes coming in, and your kite-shaped wall of strength in your upper back. And you might feel, we'll do another roll, you might feel with the ball there that as you come up, your lower back feels more supported. In the in-breath to find our neutral. So again, of course, with the ball, use bricks or support or leaning on a chair seat if the stretch is too long. And really, in these forward bend positions, an overlong stretch is not necessarily good for the back. So know that you're strong enough to support it. Rolling up, your smile, your back of waist strength, your gluteal strength coming in. If you've got the ball there, the inner thighs working. the rib cage fastening in towards the spine, the wall of strength in the upper back coming in. And with the ball there, essentially you're activating your leg stabilizer muscles. If you feel very strong, feel a nice wall of support, strength between your heels and your sitting bones, strength through the back of the waist, upper back, shoulders. It could be that when you really pull up through your core, pull up through your gluteal muscles, pull up through your thigh muscles, that you are able there just to produce a little bit of a rise. And it's this centered strength, the strength at the back, at the front, and in at two sides. So we might try one more rise. If you haven't got the ball and you're aiming to do the rises, you may realize that you need to really get this muscle on the inside of the knee to work. It draws upwards, and you really need to feel the muscles through the back of your thighs thread up very firmly into your gluteals and lowering back down. So I hope this little sequence has been helpful. We've rolled, we've twisted, we've stretched and lengthened, and hope to see you again soon on Movement Style. Always good to read your comments and see what you're thinking. Thanks for watching.